They told him one rule, just one. Whatever you hear, whatever you feel, whatever you think you see, don't look. Every man in town had made that promise. Every man but one. And the night he broke it, the town began to rot from the inside out. No one in Red Hollow talked about the old windmill anymore, not out loud, not since the day the cattle stopped drinking from the river and the church bell rang by itself at dawn. The windmill stood just beyond the last fence line, its blades frozen, black against the sky like broken ribs. It hadn't turned in years. Still, everyone swore they heard it groaning at night, like something inside was breathing. Ethan Cole had lived in Red Hollow for 43 years. He was a cowboy by trade, a widower by fate, and a quiet man by necessity. Folks trusted him because he spoke little and noticed everything. The kind of man you wanted riding beside you when things went bad. Which is why they chose him. It happened on a Sunday evening, right after church. The sky was bruised purple, wind crawling low through the grass. Sheriff Halverson took Ethan aside behind the stable. His voice shook, not with fear, but with something worse, guilt. "You hear anything near the mill," the sheriff said, eyes darting. "You turn your horse around. You don't investigate. You don't look." Ethan frowned. "Since when does Red Hollow run from noises?" The sheriff swallowed. "Since we learned what happens when we don't." 3 other men stood nearby, ranchers, fathers, men who'd buried secrets so long they forgot where. Each one nodded. Each one had already looked once and paid for it. Ethan noticed something then. None of them would meet his eyes. That night, Ethan told himself it was nothing. Old towns had old sounds. Wood expanded, metal screamed, wind played tricks on lonely men. He fed his horse, locked his door, sat with a cup of black coffee as the fire died low. Then, a sound, not loud, not sudden, a soft dragging like fingertips over dry stone, coming from the direction of the windmill. Ethan froze. The promise echoed in his mind, "Don't look." He stood anyway. Just to close the shutters, he told himself, just to be sure. That's how lies always start. Ethan had never been good at letting things go. That's why his wife had died alone, coughing in the night, while he rode out chasing a noise that didn't sit right. That's why guilt lived in his chest like a second heart. When the sound came again, closer now, he felt that same old pull. If I don't check and something happens, I'll never forgive myself. He stepped onto the porch. The wind died. The town went quiet. Too quiet. Halfway to the fence line, Ethan felt it, that crawling sensation between the shoulders, the feeling of being watched by something that didn't need eyes. The sound came again. This time it wasn't dragging, it was whispering, not words, names, his name. Ethan stopped walking. The windmill stood ahead, darker than the sky behind it. And for the first time, he understood something the others hadn't told him. The rule wasn't there to protect them from what lived inside the mill. It was there to protect whatever lived inside from them. And that's when Ethan did the one thing he swore he wouldn't do. He looked. Ethan never spoke about what he saw at the windmill. Not that night. Not ever. Because the moment his eyes met it, whatever it was, his mind refused to shape it into something honest, like trying to remember a face from a nightmare that kept rearranging itself every time you blinked. He remembered pieces, movement that didn't follow gravity, stillness that felt deliberate, and the certainty, sharp as a blade, that it had been waiting for him long before he arrived. The whisper stopped the second he looked. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. By sunrise, Red Hollow looked the same. Dusty streets, low voices, coffee boiling on stoves. The windmill stood quiet on the horizon, unchanged. Ethan told himself it was over. Whatever had crawled out of the dark belonged to the dark. Morning always won. It always had. But the town noticed him. Men paused mid-sentence when he passed. Women pulled children a little closer. Dogs growled low in their throats, eyes fixed on him like he smelled wrong. Sheriff Halverson found him by the stables. "You looked," the sheriff asked softly, "didn't you?" Ethan didn't answer. That was answer enough. The sheriff exhaled through his nose. God help us. The first thing to change was the livestock. Cows refused to cross certain patches of land. Horses threw riders near the eastern road. Chickens pecked themselves bloody against coop walls, like trying to escape something that wasn't there. Then came the sleep. People started waking up at the same hour, every night, 3 minutes past 2. Not screaming, just sitting up in bed, listening, as if waiting for a sound that never came. Except Ethan heard it, every night, closer. Ethan stopped sleeping. When he closed his eyes, he saw shapes rearranging themselves just out of focus. When he stayed awake, he felt watched by something patient, something amused. He scrubbed his hands raw, trying to get rid of a sensation he couldn't name, like his skin remembered being touched by cold air that wasn't air at all. He started riding longer routes, took jobs outside town, told himself distance would thin whatever thread had been tied to him. It didn't. Wherever he went, the sound followed. Not whispers anymore. Breathing. On the 5th night, old Mrs. Calder didn't wake up at 2:03. Her husband did. He said she was sitting upright, eyes open, smiling at the ceiling, dead for hours. The doctor called it a stroke. Nobody believed him. At the funeral, Ethan felt it again, that pressure between his shoulders, watching, learning, and for the first time he realized the truth was worse than fear. Whatever he'd seen wasn't done with Red Hollow, and it had chosen him as the door. That evening, a boy ran through town screaming. The mill was moving. One blade, slow, creaking against the wind. Ethan mounted his horse without thinking. Sheriff Halverson grabbed his arm. "Don't," he hissed. "You already broke the rule." Ethan pulled free. "Then tell me," he said, voice hollow, "what happens if nobody stops it?" The sheriff looked at him with something like pity. "You don't stop it," he said. "You live with what you let in." As Ethan rode toward the windmill again, the whisper returned. Louder now. Grateful. The windmill blade turned only once. That was enough. By the time Ethan reached the fence line, it had already stopped. The night air lay flat and heavy, like it had been pressed down by something enormous. No whispers, no breathing, just silence so complete it rang in his ears. Ethan didn't get closer this time. He didn't need to. The feeling was already inside him now. The next morning, Red Hollow held a meeting. Not in the church, not in the saloon. In the open dirt between buildings where lies felt smaller under the sky. Sheriff Halverson spoke first. "We're not dealing with ghosts," he said. "We're dealing with panic." Some folks nodded. Others stared at the windmill in the distance. A rancher named Coley spat into the dust. "My cattle won't drink. My wife wakes up crying. That ain't panic." A murmur spread. Then the sheriff said the sentence that would damn them all. "We shut the mill down." Ethan's head snapped up. It's already shut. Halverson didn't look at him. I mean for good. They went together. 10 men, ropes, tools, lanterns, strength in numbers, that old human lie. Ethan stayed back, heart pounding, knowing that the mill didn't need to move to work. As the men reached the structure, the air shifted. Lantern flames bent inward, like they were leaning to listen. One man laughed nervously. See? Just wood and bolts. Then the ropes snapped. Not all at once, one by one. Clean cuts, like something invisible had bitten through them. The men ran, except one. They found Coley at dawn. Alive, but wrong. He sat at his kitchen table, hands folded, staring at nothing. When his wife shook him, he flinched like a struck animal. "I didn't mean to look," he kept saying. "I didn't mean to see it again." Again. That word stuck in Ethan's chest, because suddenly memories he'd never owned started knocking. A boyhood summer, a dare, the mill turning when no wind blew, and a younger Ethan standing too close, looking. Ethan rode out alone that night. Not to the mill, past it, to the old graves near the dry wash. That's where Sheriff Halverson found him. "You remember now," the sheriff said quietly. Ethan didn't turn. "I looked before, didn't I?" Halverson nodded once. "So did I. So did half this town." "Then why?" "Because the first time," the sheriff cut in, voice cracking, "it lets you forget." Ethan finally faced him. "And the second?" Halverson's eyes were wet. "The second time, it remembers you back." That night, Red Hollow slept. All of them. For the first time in weeks. No waking at 2:03, no whispers, no fear. Ethan knew better, because as he lay staring at the ceiling, he heard it. Not from the windmill, from inside the town, learning how to sound like them, learning how to lie. For 3 days, Red Hollow felt normal. Too normal. People laughed again. Children chased each other through the dust. The church bell rang at the right hour, by the right hand. No one woke at 2:03. The windmill stood still. The town took that as mercy. Ethan took it as a warning, because the sound hadn't stopped. It had moved. Ethan heard it while saddling his horse. A familiar voice. His wife's. Soft, tired, exactly the way she'd sounded near the end. "Ethan," it whispered, not from the air, but from memory. "You always leave when things get hard." His hands shook. He dropped the saddle. That was the moment he understood what they'd done wrong. The thing in the mill didn't hunt bodies. It hunted regret. Sheriff Halverson gathered the town again. "We stopped talking about it," he said. "That's how it wins. Fear gives it shape." Some nodded. Others looked relieved. A few looked angry. But tired people choose peace over truth every time. Ethan stepped forward. "It's not fear, it's familiarity." The sheriff snapped. "Enough." That's when Ethan realized something colder than horror. Red Hollow didn't want saving. It wanted quiet. That night, reflections started changing. Not dramatically, subtly. Men saw themselves blink out of sync in wash basins. Women noticed smiles that lingered too long in glass. Children waved at their reflections and swore something waved back a second later. The town laughed it off. Ethan didn't. He covered every mirror in his house. Still, when he closed his eyes, he saw faces that weren't his, wearing his expressions. On the fourth morning, old Coley spoke clearly for the first time since the mill. "I remember everything," he said calmly. His wife cried with relief. He hugged her. Then he whispered, "It showed me how to forget the pain." That afternoon, Coley walked into the dry wash and laid down, smiling. No struggle, no note, just peace. The town called it exhaustion. Ethan called it payment. Ethan rode to the windmill at dusk, not out of fear, out of understanding. As he dismounted, the whisper returned, not as sound, but as thought. "You promised you wouldn't look." Ethan stared at the frozen blades. "I already did," he said quietly. "So what do you want now?" The mill didn't move. But for the first time, Ethan felt something like satisfaction. The windmill never answered out loud. It didn't need to. The moment Ethan stood before it, the air shifted, warmer now, familiar, like stepping into a room you used to live in. "You always come back," the thought said. Ethan swallowed. "You don't scare me. I don't need to." The realization hit him slow and sickening. Fear was bait. This thing survived on something else. Relief. Images pressed behind Ethan's eyes. His wife, coughing into a blood-stained cloth. The night he rode out instead of staying. The sound of hooves fading while she whispered his name. "You didn't kill her," Ethan muttered. "No," the presence agreed gently. "You just chose not to stay." Ethan clenched his fists. The thing knew the difference. That was worse. "You did this to the town," Ethan said. "You fed on them." "They asked," it replied. "Every one of them. They wanted quiet. I gave it." Ethan thought of Coley, smiling, empty. "And what do you want from me?" The pause felt intentional. "You already gave it to me once," the thought said. "Your attention." The windmill creaked, not turning, just stretching. "But now I can give something back." Ethan's wife stood before him, not as she'd died, as she'd been before the sickness, strong, smiling, real. She reached for him. "You don't have to carry this anymore," she said. "Just stop fighting." Ethan's breath broke. For one terrible second, he wanted to believe. That was the trap. "What happens to the town?" Ethan asked. The figure tilted its head. "They forget." "And me?" A pause. "You remember, so they don't have to." The weight of it crushed him. One man carrying the grief of many. One mind never allowed to rest. A living grave. Sheriff Halverson rode up behind him, gun shaking in his hand. "Step away from it," the sheriff said. "Please." Ethan didn't turn. "Do you hear them at night?" Ethan asked softly. "All the things we never said?" The sheriff's voice cracked. "Yes." Ethan nodded. Then he stepped closer to the windmill, and the blades began to turn. Red Hollow slept like a town forgiven. No nightmares, no whispers, no sudden waking at 2:03. People smiled easier, laughed louder, spoke about the future again, like it was something solid instead of a rumor. The windmill turned every night now, slow, steady, like a heart that had finally found its rhythm. Ethan Cole was the only one who didn't sleep. The memories came in waves. Not his, the town's. Regrets he'd never lived, words never spoken, choices made in fear and sealed in silence. A father slamming a door for the last time, a woman choosing comfort over love, a boy watching his brother drown while adults looked away. Ethan felt them all. And the thing in the mill kept its promise. No one else did. Sheriff Halverson stopped him in the street. "You did it," the sheriff said, almost smiling. "Whatever you did, it worked." Ethan studied the man's face. Lighter, calmer, emptier. "It won't last," Ethan said. The sheriff shook his head. "You always see storms where there aren't any." Ethan almost laughed. Almost. The changes were small at first. People forgot anniversaries that once mattered. Songs lost their endings. Prayers trailed off mid-sentence. Children stopped asking questions. They didn't need answers anymore. Peace had made curiosity unnecessary. Ethan realized the truth too late. The thing didn't just take pain, it took depth. A girl named Maybelle stood too close to the mill one night. She was 9. Her mother had told her the rule like a bedtime prayer: don't look. But curiosity doesn't understand bargains made before it was born. Ethan felt it the moment she did. A sharp tug behind his eyes, a new memory forcing its way in. Screaming, then silence. Ethan ran. By the time he reached the mill, Mabel stood frozen, staring up at the turning blades. Tears streamed down her face, but she wasn't afraid. She was relieved. "It showed me where Daddy went," she whispered. Ethan grabbed her shoulders. "Don't listen." Too late. Her eyes went glassy. The mill slowed. Satisfied. Ethan carried Maybelle home. She slept peacefully. She would never wake up crying again, or laughing, or dreaming. As Ethan sat alone that night, the windmill turning in the distance, the truth finally settled into his bones. The promise was never "don't look." It was "don't let anyone else look." And Ethan was already failing. Red Hollow stopped dreaming. Not just sleeping without nightmares, dreaming entirely. People woke rested, but hollow. Conversations felt shorter. Love felt optional. Funerals became quiet affairs. No tears, no anger, just acceptance. That's when the town started to notice. Pain had been taken. So had meaning. The windmill spoke again, not with words, but certainty. "You were never special," it told him. "You were compatible." Ethan understood then. He wasn't chosen because he was strong. He was chosen because he already lived with regret, because loss had carved space inside him, because he could hold what others couldn't, and because, deep down, he believed he deserved it. A group formed quietly. 6 people, then 12. Men and women who felt something was wrong but couldn't explain why. Artists who couldn't finish paintings. Mothers who felt nothing holding their newborns. They met at night. They whispered about the mill, about stopping it. Sheriff Halverson confronted Ethan. "They're talking about burning it down," he said. "You have to stop them." Ethan shook his head. "You don't want them to." The sheriff stared. "What did you do?" Ethan didn't answer. The rebels reached the mill before dawn. Torches raised, fear returning for the first time in weeks. Ethan arrived too late. The windmill screamed, not in sound, in memory. Every regret Ethan carried tore free and flooded the town. People dropped to their knees, crying, screaming, remembering. The rebels ran, but the damage was done. "You broke the balance," the mill accused. Ethan stood shaking. "You were stealing them." "I was saving them." "By hollowing them out?" "By making them quiet." The blades spun faster. For the first time, Ethan felt anger from it. Real anger. Sheriff Halverson found Ethan at sunrise. The man looked older now, awake. "You didn't save us," the sheriff said. "You postponed us." Ethan nodded. "And now?" Ethan looked toward the mill. "Now it won't settle for one man." The sheriff followed his gaze, and finally understood. That night, Red Hollow gathered again, not out of fear, out of rage. Someone shouted, "We'd rather hurt than be empty." Another voice followed, "Burn it." The windmill turned faster. Ethan stepped forward. "If you destroy it," he said, voice breaking, "it takes everything back at once." The crowd fell silent, and the mill whispered, loud enough for all to feel, "Choose." The town stood divided beneath the night sky, fire in their hands, grief in their throats, memory clawing its way back into places that had gone numb. The windmill loomed above them, blades cutting slow circles through the dark. Ethan raised his hands. "If you burn it," he said, "every pain you gave up comes back at once." Someone shouted, "Good." Another voice cracked, "We can handle it." The windmill pulsed. "They always say that," it whispered, not cruelly, almost sadly. Ethan stepped closer. "What are you?" he asked. The answer came as understanding, not sound. Not a demon, not a ghost, not even alive. It was a container, a place where unbearable things went when humans refused to carry them anymore. Wars fed it, famines strengthened it, towns like Red Hollow created it. "I exist because you look away," it said. Ethan felt the weight of that truth crush his chest. "Then take me," Ethan said. "All of it. Forever." The mill slowed. That was never the bargain. The ground trembled. One man can carry guilt, not consequence. Ethan understood too late. This wasn't about punishment. It was about distribution. The torches flickered. The wind picked up. The mill spoke to the town now. "You starved me." Faces twisted in pain as fragments returned, memories without context, emotions without shape. A woman sobbed, not knowing why. A man screamed a name he didn't recognize. Ethan shouted, "Stop!" "Feed me," the mill replied calmly. The blades ground to a halt. Silence fell. Then the last offer came. "Let the children forget." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "They will grow without pain, without fear, without depth. You will carry the rest." Ethan's knees buckled. A generation without suffering. A generation without meaning. This wasn't a monster. It was a mirror. It offered exactly what humans asked for: peace without cost, healing without grief, life without weight. And it always ended the same way. Before Ethan could speak, someone threw a torch. Flames caught the dry wood. The windmill screamed, not in rage, but in release. The blades spun wildly as fire climbed the frame. Ethan shouted, "No!" Too late. The town had chosen pain, and pain, once reclaimed, doesn't come back quietly. The fire didn't just burn the windmill, it opened it. The moment the first beam collapsed, the night split wide. Pain returned like floodwater breaking a dam. Not gradually, not mercifully, all at once. People screamed, not because they were hurt, but because they remembered being hurt. Every loss they had buried, every word they never said, every cowardly silence. The town buckled under the weight of itself. A mother collapsed, sobbing for a child she had learned to forget. A man clawed at his chest, remembering the brother he let die alone. Couples tore apart as truths resurfaced with no warning. Ethan dropped to his knees, because he felt it too. Not just his regret, everyone's. The container was breaking, and it was pouring through him. When the mill finally collapsed into embers, the screaming slowed. People lay in the dirt, shaking, exhausted, alive. Someone laughed hysterically. "It's done. We're free." Ethan knew better. The sound wasn't gone. It had lost its walls. By morning, Red Hollow was unrecognizable. Some people left immediately, packing in silence, eyes wild, unable to bear what they felt. Others stayed, clinging to each other with desperate intensity, as if connection might anchor them. Fights broke out, confessions spilled, old grudges reignited. Pain without preparation is chaos, and chaos spreads. Ethan couldn't speak. Every thought came layered with someone else's sorrow. Every breath felt borrowed. Sheriff Halverson tried to steady him. "You did what you could." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No," he whispered. "I delayed what should have been shared." The sheriff didn't understand. Ethan did. That night, Ethan stood where the windmill had been. Ash drifted like snow. The presence returned, not whole, not gone. Fragmented. "You broke the vessel," it said faintly. "Now you are one." Ethan staggered. "I won't let you spread," he said. "You won't need to," it replied. "You'll carry until you can't." At dawn, Ethan saddled his horse. No one stopped him. They were too busy surviving themselves. He rode out of Red Hollow, carrying a town's worth of pain inside his chest. Behind him, the place began to die, not loudly, but slowly. And somewhere down the road, Ethan felt it. A place ahead. Another hollow. Another town that didn't want to feel anymore. And the burden shifted. Ethan rode for days. No destination, no plan. Just distance. But pain doesn't respect miles. Every time he passed a farmhouse, a campfire, a lonely fence post in the dark, he felt it, that quiet, aching hunger. Not his, the world's. He finally understood the promise. It was never meant to protect people from the thing behind the door. It was meant to protect the thing from being replaced. Somewhere along the trail, Ethan stopped feeling like a man. He became a boundary, a moving line between what humans refuse to carry and what must hold it when they don't. Towns were built on forgetting, on ignoring, on telling children, "Don't ask, don't look, don't remember." And when the weight grew too heavy, something always formed to hold it. A mill, a mine, a locked room, a man. One evening, Ethan reached a settlement by a dry riverbed. People there slept poorly. They spoke softly. They had rules. Don't go near the old well. Don't listen at night. Don't look inside. Ethan felt the ache ease the moment he crossed their boundary. The burden leaning, searching. He stayed one night, then two. On the third night, a boy followed a sound. 3 taps. Soft, curious, familiar. Ethan woke with a gasp. Too late. By the time he reached the well, the boy was already staring down into it, eyes wide, calm, emptying. Ethan grabbed him. The pain surged, shifted, anchored. The boy collapsed, crying, alive. Ethan fell to his knees. He knew what he had done. At sunrise, the town gathered. They thanked Ethan, called him a hero, asked him to stay. He shook his head. Heroes fix things. Ethan only held them. Before leaving, he carved words into the old wood near the well. Not a warning, a confession. Please, don't look. Not because something terrible waits inside, but because once you do, you'll understand. And once you understand, you'll never be able to put it back. Years later, travelers spoke of a cowboy on the road. A quiet man, eyes too tired for his age. They said wherever he stopped, places felt lighter, and wherever he left, someone else began to listen. The West was never built on bravery. It was built on men who carried what others couldn't, and on promises made too late. If you stayed until the end, you already know. And if this story held you here, subscribe and like this video. The rule isn't about fear, it's about responsibility. So if you ever hear 3 taps in the dark, ask yourself, are you ready to hold what comes next?